To understand the true horror of what happened in the Flying Manor, one first has to unlearn the concept of birth. Birth is messy, it is loud, it is biological. In the world of Lumiere, life does not begin with a breath, it begins with a stroke. The woman we call Painted Clea was not born. She was curated. She was a desperate memory brought to life by a grieving mother. Real Dessendre, the paintress, fled the agony of the real world and retreated into the canvas, and there she painted the thing she missed the most, a family that was whole. For the first few years of her existence, Painted Clea did not know she was a forgery. How could she? Her memories felt heavy and real. She remembered a childhood that never happened. She remembered the warmth of a sun that was nothing more than yellow pigment. She was designed to be the idealized version of the daughter Aline had lost. She was soft, she was nurturing, and above all, she was the big sister. She lived a perfect, impossible life inside her family manor. She had a home, she had a mother, she even fell in love. His name was Simon. He was another creation of the canvas, a variable that the paintress hadn't accounted for. Their love was the only thing in that world that wasn't painted by Aline. It was something they made themselves. When Painted Clea looked at Simon, she felt the beat of a heart she didn't physically possess. She believed she was real, and because she believed it, she was happy. But a painting is a fragile thing. It has no bones to break. It has no real blood to spill. It is entirely at the mercy of the brush that created it, and a painting can be ruined by a single careless stroke. The nightmare began when the sky turned the color of dried blood, and the Real Clea Dessendre walked in. She came from the outside world, the real one. She was a soldier, hardened by the war against the writers, stripped of all softness by years of loss and violence. She walked into the manor, and she saw herself, but she didn't see a sister or a reflection or a miracle. She looked at this gentle, smiling duplicate of herself, this woman playing house in a fake paradise while the real world burned, and she didn't feel connection. She felt disgust. She saw a weakness that needed to be corrected. She saw an asset that was being wasted. And so, the Real Clea performed an act that is perhaps the single cruelest thing recorded in the archives of the expedition. She didn't kill her copy. Death would have been a mercy. Death is an ending. What she did was an erasure. She painted over her. One has to understand the metaphysical mechanics of this to truly grasp the horror of the next decades. She didn't wipe the canvas clean. She didn't scrape away the soul of the woman who loved Simon. She simply buried it. She used her superior power to paint a new layer of magical commands, a thick, suffocating lacquer, directly on top of the old personality. Imagine being buried alive inside your own body. Imagine that you are still fully conscious. You can see through your eyes. You can hear every word spoken in the room. You can feel the air on your skin. But you have been severed from your motor functions. You are locked in the passenger seat of your own mind, screaming behind a pane of glass that no one can hear, while a cold, ruthless machine takes the wheel. For decades, the original Painted Clea was trapped behind that wall of paint. She was forced to watch. She watched as her hands that were designed to hold her mother, hands that had caressed Simon's face, were turned into instruments of industry. The manor ceased to be a home, it became a factory, and she became the Regent. Day after day, year after decade, she felt the sickness of creation. She was forced to reach into the raw, chaotic ink of the canvas and pull out nightmares. She churned out the Nevrons. You have seen them, the multicolored, twisted horrors with blades for limbs. She built them. She knitted their bodies together with magic she didn't want to use, designing them for a single purpose, to hunt down and kill the people of Lumiere. The White Nevrons, those pale, aimless failures, were not born from the prisoner's struggle against the machine. They are the discarded prototypes of the Real Clea. They are the remnants of early experiments she conducted. They remain misprogrammed and colorless, lacking the violent purpose of the factory's later output because they are essentially broken. They represent the real Clea's early, clumsy attempts at creation, confused, benign wanderers that sometimes even try to help, acting on corrupted, half-formed instructions. When she perfected her method for creating monsters, she didn't fix these early errors, she simply abandoned them. They are not acts of rebellion. They are the forgotten, glitching echoes of the oppressor's past. Painted Clea's psychological torment went deeper than just the manufacturing of monsters. She was forced to destroy the one thing she had built herself, her love for Simon. She watched him walk into the room, his eyes full of confusion and desperate hope. She heard him call her name. She wanted to scream to him, to tell him to run, to tell him that the thing standing before him was a puppet. But she couldn't make a sound. Instead, she felt her own mouth curve into a cold, manipulative smile. She heard her own voice, twisted into a cruel parody of affection, lie to him. She watched the machine use his love as a weapon. She tricked him. She radicalized him. She sent him on a suicide mission against the paintress, knowing full well it would destroy him. And she had to stand there, frozen in her painted prison, and watch him walk away to his doom. Time in the canvas is not like time in the real world. It drags, it drips. She spent decades in that silent, screaming isolation, an observer of her own atrocities. It only ended when Expedition 33 arrived. When the expedition entered the manor, they didn't know they were fighting a victim. They saw a monster. They saw the Regent, the source of the Nevrons. They attacked her with everything they had. But this is where the story shifts from horror to tragedy. As the blows landed, as the swords cut and the magic blasted against her form, something remarkable happened. The pain wasn't just damage, it was liberation. The physical trauma cracked the lacquer. The heavy, suffocating layers of the Real Clea's paint began to spiderweb. The armor broke. And for the first time in decades, the prisoner looked out. The machine faltered. The movements became jerky. The eyes, which had been cold and dead for so long, suddenly flooded with a terrifying clarity. She looked across the battlefield. She didn't see enemies. She didn't see targets. She saw a young girl with a rapier. She saw Alicia. In that split second, the programming shattered completely. Because Painted Clea was not just a factory, she was, at her core, what Aline had designed her to be, the big sister. She looked at Alicia, and she recognized the soul beneath the face. She saw her little sister, the person she was conceptually designed to love. And then, the realization hit her. A cold, hard truth that cut deeper than any blade. She realized that she was the danger. She realized that as long as this painted body remained intact, as long as the factory stood, the Real Clea could reach out and take control again. She would be used to hurt Alicia. The expedition thinks they won that fight. They think they destroyed the Regent. They are wrong. The ending of the battle wasn't a victory for the expedition. It was an execution. But they weren't the executioners. She regained control for one single agonizing heartbeat. And in that heartbeat, she made a choice. She didn't try to run. She didn't ask for help. She knew there was no fixing a painting that had been painted over. She turned her immense power inward. She didn't die because she was weak. She died because she refused to be a weapon for 1 second longer. She looked at her brother one last time, and she shattered herself. She dissolved her own existence, unmaking the magic that held her together, choosing the oblivion of death over the horror of enslavement. That is the tragedy of the Regent. She wasn't a monster. She was a sister who spent decades in hell, just waiting for the chance to save her family the only way she knew how, by removing herself from the canvas,